Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's video. Going to have a look at weather next week to 10 days. In today's video, it's going to take us to around middle of August. I think go to around 14th. That's right, 14th of August with this update. So it'll take more or less to the middle part of the month. It looks like we're going to give it an already shot as we go through into next week. How much of that impacts us, how much just slides to the east of us, not sure. Generally, these northerlies tend to get trended eastwards with time. It's why in the winter our cold sort of snaps tend to go a bit down the pan. They only last a day or two because the coldest of the air very often gets shoved off in towards Scandinavia and Germany and Denmark on the other side of the North Sea. But I think we'll bring down somewhat cooler air through the course of the middle part of next week. It could turn really quite cool indeed, certainly by night. For a few days or a few nights through the middle part of next week, for then probably be recovering with the temperatures a bit as we get through towards the middle part of the month. I'll show you all the detail in a second. Before I go on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on the pages, and you can have a browse through the links and have a browse through widgets and click through the links. You'll be helping us to pay for our website, and thanks so much for doing that. This video adds most of the pages, which own that content. When you watch it, they close back up again. It's all helping to pay for GasWeapons.com. Rather late with today's video, so I'm rushing to get done. So here is the 500 millibar high dominance broken down into 10-day periods. We've got the ECMWF on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet, is an area in the atmosphere where high pressure, low pressure being moved around by a jet stream running above. Blue extrapolates to low pressure, and red and orange extrapolates to high pressure. So the ECM is placing a trough of low pressure through Scandinavia, down into Central Europe through the middle part of the month, or through to the middle part of the month. We've got a ridge out in the Atlantic, and it means that the flow doing something a bit like that. So it is turning significantly cooler. The core of this is probably going to be east of us with the trough, but it is turning cooler. We are bringing cooler air around the top of that ridge that's in the Atlantic. And it's not overly wet either, because we've got that ridge out to the west of us, so I'm not looking at Atlantic onslaught. Generally quite cool and dry if that comes off. GFS is very similar. Again, trough of low pressure through Scandinavia, down in central parts of Europe. Ridge is out in the Atlantic and going up towards Greenland to some degree. The jet stream of the flow is going rather like that. So again, it does place us on the cool side of the jet, and we're bringing the air through from a northwesterly direction, but the core of the cool temperatures is with the trough going through Scandinavia in central parts of Europe. Nevertheless, we will, I think, feel significantly cooler as we go through the middle part of next week. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for London. The red line here is the 30-year temperature average, so about average now. We're going to go above average over the weekend. It's going to be quite warm, particularly in the south over the weekend. Then into next week, we get that cooler interlude, particularly through the middle part of the week, before a recovery begins to take place towards the middle part of the month. This is 15th of August just here, by which time temperatures are starting to lift up once again, although there is a lot of scatter there for that week 2 period. From around here onwards, you see there's a huge amount of scatter, indicating a lot of options are on the table. But I think the overall trend as we go towards the middle part of August will be to lift the temperatures up somewhat. Not a huge amount of precipitation coming up either. Got some rainfall spikes into next week. A lot of dry weather over the weekend with this push up in the temperatures for the south anyway. Early next week, we will bring some showers down across the country with this drop in the temperature, but I don't think it's going to be a particularly wet spell. But that's for London. You have a look at Manchester. We can see that, again, we've got that drop in temperature taking place through next week before a recovery towards the middle part of the month. But there's more precipitation coming through for Manchester next week. So it implies that really we continue with this idea, but we have pretty much through the summer, which is the north and west always gets the wettest of conditions, the south and east always gets the driest of conditions. That's certainly what we've had through July. It looks like it's carrying on into August as well. June was a bit different. June was actually a bit wetter in the east compared to the west, but certainly through July it's been drier in the north and west. It's been wetter in the northwest, drier in the south and east. Looks like that's continuing into August as well. Precipitation anomalies for the next week. This goes from the 4th through the 12th of August, generally coming out cooler than average, so it looks quite a cool week, as it is for most of Central and Western Europe as well. Precipitation generally comes out a bit wetter than average in the north and to the east of us, drier than average out to the west and southwest of us, and many parts of the UK come out with near normal precipitation from the 4th through the 12th of August. Here's the GFS for Sunday. Then we've got high pressure ridging to the south, low pressures up to the north. That's quite a significant low pressure. It could bring gale force winds to northern parts of Scotland over the weekend, quite unusually, whereas in the south it'll be very warm. Temperature could be touching 26 or 27 degrees in the far southeast by sunny afternoons. That's around 80 Fahrenheit. So pretty warm down in the south, stormy up in the north. Then go through into Monday and we start to bring a cold front down across the country. That will probably bring a band of showers south and east. And then follow the isobars back, the air behind that cold front, which is about here at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday, behind that cold front, the air is coming from a long way north. It's originating over the North Pole. And although it is summer over the pole, so it's comparatively warm, it is still a pretty cold place, even at this time of the year. So it will be a cooler wind that we have coming down from the north on Monday. That lasting to Tuesday, but notice what's happening on Tuesday. The high pressure is already starting to topple in from the Atlantic. So the worst of that northerly wind is going through there, through Scandinavia. And we have got sort of moderated winds coming from a northwesterly direction. It's very typical of what happens in the winter. In the winter, the models sort of float the idea of producing a big northerly blast. We see models churning out, runs up, give us a lot of snow and cold temperatures. And then very gradually, as the days go by, those northerlies tend to get pushed further and further and further east. So in the end, the core of the northerly is sinking down over Scandinavia and Central Europe. And we just finish up with a chilly sort of couple of days period with the air coming from Greenland and Iceland, but being modified by the Atlantic. What we see here is quite similar to that kind of scenario. Nevertheless, it is cooler, and as we go through into Wednesday, I actually bring a little trough into the north, into Scotland there on Wednesday morning. That's probably bringing some more general rain with really quite cool temperatures as well. And we go through into Thursday and we start to cut off that cool flow as the ridge begins to topple in off the Atlantic. So a lot of dry weather as we go through to the end of next week and a gradual recovery in the temperatures. It will be a gradual process, but by next Friday, if this comes off, I think we're looking at temperatures getting back towards the seasonal average. And that high pressure hangs around up to day 10. This is Sunday the 14th of August, looking quite nice under a ridge of high pressure. It's not a heat wave, but it does look fairly pleasant. It'll be a lot of dry weather and temperatures about average, maybe a little bit above average if that comes after sort of low to mid 20s Celsius by the middle of August. The eastern Earth is much more pronounced with this northerly. So this is Monday. Still the warm air from the weekend hanging on in the south. It's low pressure coming off the Atlantic. And this is Tuesday. You see the difference is that the high pressure is further out to the west of us, going up towards Greenland. The low pressure, the trough, which essentially got the cool air within it, is closer to us. And we're getting more of a direct hit from the north. And that's even more apparent as we go through into Wednesday and then on into Thursday. So this is Thursday, the 11th of August. And again, you see it is much more pronounced with this northerly that's coming down across the country. This is probably over the top, but it's still an option. It's still on the table, but I would suspect the GFS may have this closer to how things will actually turn out with the core of the cool air actually going into Scandinavia. If it does come off, it is really very cool air that's coming down across the country. This is the upper air, these are the upper air temperatures for Thursday, the 11th of August. And you see the green colours there coming into a north country. That's a 0 Celsius isotherm. Don't often talk about the isotherms, but they sort of mark the boundary in terms of the different air masses. And the 0 Celsius isotherm is sort of autumnal air, if you like. You normally see this, you see it a little bit in September, but more definitively, you'll start seeing this 0 Celsius isotherm turning up in October. It's autumnal at Taipei, and by way of a -5 isotherm is there to the very, very far north over the North Pole. It's just here. And the -5 isotherm is what we look for in winter to bring down sort of cold air across the country. Get -5 isotherm. It's sort of a minimum requirement to get snow. You need other things to come into play as well, but you do need the -5 isotherm in as a minimum sort of requirement generally. So that's beginning to appear over top of the North Pole. Don't have to worry about that until we get to about October, November. But for us, it's this 0 Celsius isotherm. That's important because that's autumnal type air. So if that does come down across the country, it may get to Scotland, certainly. I'll be surprised if it gets any further south than that. I'll be surprised if it gets as far south as this is showing. But if it does, it's going to feel autumnal, especially at night. And then we go through into the end of next week, and this high pressure then gradually starts to toppling off. So it's going with the same idea as the GFS. It's just more pronounced with the northerly midweek, and then it takes longer to build this ridge into the country, or top of the ridge into the country at the end of next week. Nevertheless, we finish up on the same sort of scenario in the same place as the GFS, so that by Sunday the 14th of August, day 10, we've got high pressure pretty much sitting over the country, and by this time the upper air temperatures are starting to stage a recovery. Still generally a bit cooler than average though, but generally it is turning a little bit warmer there as we go through up to the middle of August, and a fair amount of dry weather under that ridge also. So that's everything for the next week to 10 days. We're going to have a lot of warm weather in the south this weekend, wet and windy, particularly Saturday night in the north with the risk of gales across northern Scotland. Early next week, we're going to bring a cold front down across the country, which will bring some rain. And then behind that, we're going to get a swiper there from the north. How much that northerly impacts us, I'm not sure. The ECMWF gives a real punch of cool air, or autumnal air, from the north. The GFS generally wants it to shove it off more towards the east. That tends to be, for us, how these northerlies pan out. That's especially true in winter, but I assume it's true all year round as well. Without a proper block setting up over Greenland, the northerlies generally tend to get shoved off in towards Scandinavia. So I would suspect this will be modified from what the ECMWF is showing. We'll wait and see on that. It is going to turn cooler though for the middle part of next week, most definitely. And then we go through towards the middle part of August, which is sort of the end of next week, and then the following weekend, when we probably see high pressure starting to build through the country. So a recovery in temperatures takes place back towards average, and plenty of dry weather with that as well. Quite where things go into the second half of August, we've got to wait and see, and that's what we'll be focusing on tomorrow when we do JMA Friday. We'll have a look at the Japanese and CFS V2 models, which will take us through the remainder of the month. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.